A pleasant day to everyone. I hope you will find this topic very interesting and informative, especially for those who are very interested in science education and its improvement. Over the past 3 years, I've been serving the Department of Education as a master teacher in the division of Pampanga, delivering the science content to the learners, providing technical assistance to science teachers to be able for them to fulfill their commitment to science education and portray their role as an agent of change in the educational system. And also, of course, in developing and in helping in the attainment of the science education in the K-12 curriculum. One of the goals of science education in the K-12 curriculum is scientific, scientific and technological literacy among learners through proper monitoring, assessment, and employment of an effective teaching model in order to promote quality education for science education among learners and to produce lifelong learners as products of K-12 curriculum. Now, in attaining this goal of the science education, the Department of Education, through the Division of Pampanga, tasked both junior high school and senior high school teachers to employ 7E instructional model by creating lesson exemplars for both core subjects and specialized subjects in the senior high school program. Now, believing that this model is the effective model or instructional learning model in developing scientific literacy, the division personnel, school administrators, school implementers, and science educators are working hand in hand in developing scientific literate learners. Development of scientific literacy is actually one of the goals of scientific education in the Philippines. Now, likewise, integration of history and philosophy of science is also an important part of science instruction. Now, this paper presents the different various studies and related literature on the effectiveness of 7E learning model or instructional model in developing scientific literacy and in integration of history and philosophy of science. The first part of this paper is actually about the 7E model and how it was developed, and second part reveals the different various studies and related literature on the effectiveness of 7E learning model in developing scientific literacy among learners. Now, this also aims to answer or address the following questions. How do schools attain the goal of producing scientific literate learners? How do curriculum planners help the school in achieving this endeavor? How do school administrators address issues and concerns in the implementation of the K-12 curriculum? How do science teachers play their role in the implementation of the K-12 curriculum? And lastly, how do science educators face the challenges in presenting or preserving the history and philosophy of science through instruction? In this context, the researcher aimed to investigate the effectiveness of using 7E learning model in developing scientific literacy and in integration of history and philosophy of science. The first part of this paper is to present the development of 7E instructional model. The 7 instructional model was actually developed by the collaboration of the principles and philosophies of the different experts in the teaching science like Herbart, like John DeWitt, Myron Atkin, and Robert Karplas. They developed the 5E model. engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and e- evaluate. The expanding form of 5E model was the 7E model, which was developed by Arthur Eisencroft in 2003, which consists of 7 E's of learning, including elicit, engage, explore, explain, elaborate, evaluate, and extend. Now, the 7 E's model of instruction emphasizes the transfer of learning and importance of eliciting prior knowledge. Now, the 5E models compared to 7E model in developing the lesson exemplar. So this includes the elicit, which involves review of lesson and presenting the new lesson. Engage involves establishing a purpose for the lesson by engaging students in different activities related to the previous lesson. Explore has something to do with the students' activities that will actually develop new concepts and, of course, explain developing mastery, which leads to the formative assessment. Now, elaborate involves the finding of practical applications and concepts and skills in the daily lives of the learners, and of course, making generalization and abstractions about the lesson. Evaluate simply means evaluating learning either through formative assessment, and of course, extend, which involves additional activities for application or remediation. The second part of this paper discusses the effectiveness of the 7E learning model in developing scientific literacy, which includes the nature of science, scientific terms and concepts, interaction of science with society to develop scientific literate learners in order for them to become lifelong learners. Various studies prove that 7E learning model is effective in developing scientific literacy. Some of these are from the studies of Fatima and Angrisha 2018, which emphasizes that there is a significant increase on the results of pre-test and post-test of elementary students. Another study conducted by Sharma 2018 supports that with the 7E cycle model, students' problem-solving abilities and process skills in science were actually enhanced. Another study proved that laboratory approach using 7E cycle model was more effective than using the traditional model of teaching. This was conducted by Candy 2008. Another study which was presented by Muhammad 2015, 7E instructional model was more effective than the traditional instructional in terms of students' achievement. There was also an increase in the understanding achievement of the senior high school learners in physics, which was conducted by Resti et al. In 2017. It was also strongly confirmed that 7E cycle have a positive effects on students' achievement, which was conducted by Nuri 2016. Learning of physics using the 7E instructional model was actually an effective way in improving students' cognitive abilities on the concept of static fluid, which was conducted by Nyadi et al. 2018. So all of these studies, related studies, are actually supporting that 7E learning model or instructional model is an effective approach in developing scientific literacy. Now, the third part is about the effectiveness of 7E instructional model or learning model in the integration of history and philosophy of science. History of science is actually the study of the development of science and scientific knowledge, including the nature, natural and social sciences. Now, there is now a whole spectrum of combination of historical, philosophical, and other perspective to study science and practice, which was studied by Arabatis 2012. The present paper throws light upon the 7E learning model and reviews the various research studies related to it. The first part was the development of the 7E model. Second part revealed research studies that with this instructional model, students' achievements can be increased and scientific process skills can be improved and enhanced. Thus, attainment of the goal of science education to promote scientific literacy and integration of history and philosophy of science will be possible through the 7E learning model. And these are my references in developing this seminar paper. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you will find this interesting and significant. And I am Mrs. Pilar Limin, a science enthusiast from the Division of